Okay, we're going to start with this beautiful Mary Cassatt painting, and I've printed out a color copy of it. This is the one that appears in your assignment in the little demo pictures there that I've got. But I'd like to show you that we are going to draw these arrows that show eye movement right on the painting. I'd like to emphasize that your eye might move differently from mine. My eye starts here, goes right to the mother's face, and then of course I go to the baby's face. I work my way down this complicated arrangement of arms, down the legs to these darling feet, back up again to the hand, back up again to the mother's face. Then if I travel around the painting again, I might work my way down to some more peripheral details like the teacup here, maybe back up to the dark hair and the complex shape of the baby's hair, maybe traveling more around the outside of the painting now, following this line down here that shows the edge between the flesh and the drapery, possibly visiting this little warm rectangle down here that Cassatt has put at the very edge of the painting. So if I were to draw lines that would show that pattern of motion, it might look something like this. I'd draw an arrow going from the mother's face to the baby's face, and then down the baby's arm to the mother's hand, something like that. Maybe along these limbs down to the baby's feet, back up here to the hand, and back up to the face. Kind of hurts to draw these arrows on this beautiful painting, but remember, it's not really a painting, it's a picture of a painting. Down to the teacup, and if I wanted to get complicated, I could say I go back up to the mother, possibly around here, maybe all the way down here, I'll say, to the arm, through the baby's hair, down here to the hands, and then I'd say down this line here to the bright rectangle. Something like that. Your eye may move differently through this piece. That's how my eye moves. That would be my pattern of movement. The next step, of course, is to take your pattern of movement and to copy it into the little squares that you're going to use for your thumbnail sketches. Now, I have printed myself out some little 3-inch squares using Illustrator, but you don't have to do that. You can draw them with a ruler, you can even draw them freehand. What I'd like is to make sure that you actually use a square so that you're thinking about the edge of your format as you work. Now, your format is square. The original painting that you took your pattern of movement from is very likely to be rectangular. Mine is. And so these arrows are going to relate to my format a little differently than they relate to Mary Cassatt's format. And that's okay. This pattern of movement is just something to get you going, right? So I'm going to draw this very, very quickly and lightly. So lightly that you can probably barely see it. I'm moving my pencil around the rectangle similarly to the way that I moved it before, something like this. And you can see that things are going to be a little bit different. I'm translating this rather loosely, but I'm trying to get all the way around my square using a similar pattern of movement to that I found in the Cassatt painting. That took me, about 10 seconds? So that means that it'll take you about 100 seconds, a little over a minute and a half, to quickly sketch these arrows in. And I'm going to start in each case about where I started before and simply think about moving the eye in a similar, whoops, let's keep it in the rectangle here. Right, so you don't have to be all nervous and worried about this. If one is a little bit different from the next, that's okay. These are guidelines to help you think about movement as you design your composition in line. And I'll do one more here. I think you're getting the idea. You probably are working along with me, perhaps, as you there we go. And the next step is to begin to design your sketches. And now I'd like to show you how this is going to work. We're going to start by drawing right over the motion pattern that we've made. I'm going to start with a little spiral here. And I suggest you start your first drawing or two just by kind of doodling. Just try some different ways of making lines. I'm trying some cross contour type lines, some sort of curved lines that are almost like cross hatching but maybe have a little bit of volume to them. A zigzag line here, just kind of scribbling. I'm going to try to stay away from shape, of course, unless I make a line of shapes. So I could make a little string of pearls here, or maybe a little line of, oh, let's see, some little, let's make a line that's kind of got some value variation to it. This is thicker, almost like a shape, but I'm making it very soft. I'm making it light at one end, and let's make a little line of shapes here too. These will be like maybe little overlapping rectangles, almost like a deck of cards that's been splayed out. And I'm just following the lines that I've made, and I'm kind of concealing those arrows. Make a little line of crescent shapes here. Just thinking of things and trying them with no real more lines that are kind of like cross-hatching. We're supposed to vary the line weight, vary the line value. My first try was pretty much on a white square, and this time I'm going to try to give my background format a value by laying down lines in between the lines of motion. I'm laying down a kind of a pattern of cross-hatching, and when I see those arrows that I've drawn, I'm sort of leaving a gap there. Maybe you can tell. Now you can already see that this sketch is going to look quite different from my first sketch, but it's got the same lines of motion. So I'm going to try to lead the eye along these white gaps here. I think I'll darken the cross-hatching at the edge of the gaps in order to make the gap a little more powerful. Maybe I can kind of ream that gap out with my eraser here to make it a little bit stronger. So that white, now I'm kind of drawing a line with my eraser, and I'm going to strengthen it by darkening the edges of the contour lines there. And I like the way that works, so I'm going to try it again with the other lines, trying to bring out my lines of motion by darkening the cross-hatching that I've put in the background. You'll notice that I'm trying to keep everything made of lines. Now it's hard to make a line without making a shape, and when you make a series of lines like this, like these cross-hatching lines, obviously I am creating shapes, but I'm trying to emphasize their linear quality. I'm trying to imply the shapes by where the lines end rather than outlining the shapes. Again, you'll remember that one of the things that you're asked to do is to work with lines of varying value. Value means how dark or how light they are. And I've got lines of several different values here. The other thing that you're supposed to do, though, is use different types of line. Now, in that second drawing, I have thicker white lines and thinner black lines. All the black lines I drew were pretty straight though, so in this one I'm going to try to make some curved lines. I like that cross-hatching idea. I like the parallel line idea, but I'm going to curve my lines more this time. This time I'm working with both the background and also the lines of motion themselves, so I'm not trying to leave the white gaps so much this time. I'm just working a little bit more freely. Now I'm going to put some straight lines in for variety. And here again I'm working with the background in between my motion arrows, trying to give some contrast between the curved lines and the straight lines. I'm going back now to try to increase the value range, make some of these lines a lot darker. I like the way that my drawing is beginning to have a little bit of a three-dimensional aspect to it. It doesn't seem as flat as the other two, and I'm going to try to bring that out by trying to make some of these cross contours seem to bend and fold. Now you'll notice that although I used my eraser on that second drawing to make my white lines a little whiter, I'm not using my eraser to correct mistakes. If I see something I don't like, I'm drawing over it and trying to change it and improve it. If I do something I wish I hadn't done, I'll try to do it differently on the next drawing. My point here is to try to crank out ideas as fast as I can. You'll notice that I'm spending maybe 2 or 3 minutes per drawing. You can spend a little more if you like, but I wouldn't recommend that you spend 15 or 20 minutes per drawing. I'd say it's much better to do a whole lot of extra drawings if you have the extra time to put in. I like the shape idea, the lines of shape, and I haven't done that in the last 2 drawings, so I'm going to emphasize that on this one. One thing that I do recommend as you work on these is to look at the previous drawings that you've done and get ideas from them. So if there's something that you tried 2 or 3 drawings ago and you've sort of forgotten about it or let it drop out, go back to it and explore it. In this one, I'm going to try to completely work with lines of shape. You may use shape, as you remember in this assignment, if you either imply it without outlining it, or if you line your shapes up to create a line of movement. And here I'm using little triangles and ellipses and rectangles to try to move the eye along my lines of motion. Now I think this might be rather tedious to watch, and you're certainly welcome to fast forward through this if you like and look at what I've done at the end. But the point is to try a lot of different things, to get your ideas out quickly and move on, to really explore line at this point, to try a variety of textures, values, and other qualities of line. And as I finish this up, I'll just note that there are examples of student sketches, not only in the video lecture you've already watched, but also in our class resources under Module 2. And I'm not going to demonstrate the Sharpie workup, but you will see examples of the next step in your rough sketches, which is to choose the one or ones of these that you like the best and combine them, enhance them, turn them into a full-size drawing just in black and white with a Sharpie pen. You will go on from there to create your Illustrator rendering. Good luck with these. I'm looking forward to seeing them in the discussion forum.